we'll go through all the questions today, but I want to first just ask both of you to sort of give people a 30,000-foot view of the district, what the major issues are in it. Bill Reicherter, why don't we start with you?
Okay. So the district, the 30,000-foot view is we go to Glades Road south, the Dixie Highway, back through to Pompano. We have some at Deerfield. And then we have Coconut Creek, Margate, Parkland, Coral Springs. That would be our district.
And what would you say are the top issues facing the district?
Well, I think there's a lot of top issues, but some of the ones that are important to me is that we have mental health is a huge issue with me. It's a personal issue with me. If you did any research on me, you'll find that out. Property insurance, that's a huge issue going on right now, especially with the hurricane. And school safety. I live in Parkland. It's a pretty huge issue in Parkland.
Okay, Senator Polsky, same question to you. Highlight for me the top issues in this district. And since he's already described the boundaries of the district, how does this change from what you previously represented before redistricting?
Just to clarify, District 30 in Boca Raton goes all the way to the ocean, doesn't stop at Dixie, and juts a little bit further north, very east of Glades, but then pretty much Glades is the boundary. I think the rest of it was correct. So I represent all of Boca Raton now and other parts of Palm Beach going north and west. And I currently represent all of Parkland, all of Coconut Creek, and part of Coral Springs. So for me, it's the same in Boca Raton, Parkland, Coconut Creek. I will expand a lot of Coral Springs, all of Margate, and the western parts of Pompano and Deerfield are newer to me. But in doing the calculations of where I was going to run after redistricting, I do represent 51% of the district now. So it made sense for me to run in this particular district. As far as the other question you asked, I'm going to answer what's important to the district, not what's important to me. I've known these people for the last 5 years that I've represented them. And so when you represent Parkland, yes, school safety is important, but it's broader than that. It's gun violence prevention. What these folks are going through now at the trial is so horrendous. And when we do Moms Demand Action or Every Town for Gun Safety rallies, Parkland is out. The whole area, everybody feels like they're part of Parkland. And when the tragedy happened, my kids were in West Boca. They were part of it. There was a big march from West Boca all the way to Parkland. Coconut Creek feels it. Coral Springs feels it. So it's a huge district-wide issue. And I'd say that was number one. Affordable housing, of course, is an issue all over the state, but especially in our area, very expensive. And the property insurance, it's just such a shame because we've known about it for a long time and just haven't acted upon it. And our special session was, in my mind, legislative malpractice. You don't manage an issue of that importance in 3 days' time with no amendments, with no experts. So I really hope we can do a lot better. And it's a shame that we haven't thus far. So I would say those are the hugest issues.
Okay, thank you. Steve Bosquet, Randy Schultz, I want to open the floor to either of you.
Thank you very much, Dan. I do have a question. I'll begin with Senator Tina Polsky. And this is a Broward specific question, although it has statewide impact, because you've both brought up the tragic events in Parkland from 2018 and more recently. Senator Polsky, did Ron DeSantis make the right decision in suspending 4 members of the Broward County School Board based on the grand jury report? What is your feeling about the action he took there?
I think he overstepped. If they did wrong, then I think it could have been dealt with in a less draconian manner. When you replace 4 people, I know, the bluest district in the state with Republicans is not what the voters asked for. He is, as he does all the time, overriding the will of the voters, as he's shown with Andrew Warren, as he's shown with the Key West referendum that was passed, and he just overrode it because he felt like it. I believe so strongly in home rule, and I have faith in our school boards. I think we have the best in Palm Beach County and Broward County. And I know a lot of my Republican colleagues don't feel that way. There's a constant attack on school boards, even before COVID. They just don't trust them. And I feel exactly the opposite. We vote for them. We trust them. I know Broward went through something no one can imagine. There's no handbook on how the school board members should have handled the tragedy that happened at Parkland. So did they do right? Did they do wrong? You know, it's not necessary for me to say, but what we could have done is the Senate could have had the trials that they normally do, like they had for Sheriff Israel. You don't just take them out and replace them with, you know, your the Republican Tory, I believe his name is, that he keeps plopping into different spots when there's an opening, and you know he'll just keep doing it over and over again. So I think that he overrode the will of the voters with what he did, and it was too much and not what Broward County wanted.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Bill Reicherter, same question to you, sir. Have you read the grand jury report, and what do you think of the action the governor took in suspending 4 school board members in Broward?
Well, I'm going to disagree with Tina. I think the Broward County School Board and Palm Beach has been corrupt for a long time. And I know, you know, we talk about Democrat, Republican. We're always on each other's side and fighting against each other. But the point of the matter is, those people that he suspended needed to be suspended. I know we put him in Republicans in there. I mean, he's a Republican. Of course, he's going to put Republicans in there. But I think he put the best people in there that he should have put in there. And if you want to attack the governor on stuff like that, okay, and you don't even know what Broward really voted. I don't know if Tina took a poll on every Broward person in Palm Beach and asked them if they're happy with DeSantis's move or not. That's just, it's her thought, it's her theory that they are, because, you know, that's what, you know, she believes. However, if you want to go that far, I mean, back when we had COVID, I think, Tina, you were trying to take away medical and religious rights of our heroes, the healthcare heroes, and put them out of work. I don't think that was very famous or a great thing to do for, you know, what Broward or Palm Beach people wanted. They wanted their jobs. So, I mean, I think it's an opinion. I don't think it's fact. But I do think he did the right thing. Honestly, I think the school boards need to be overhauled. I think there needs to be more people in office that are not politicians and that are in office for the reasons of the people and not just to play political theater, because that's what I see all day long. It's just posturing.
Can I respond?
Sure,
Yes.
sure. Go ahead.
Yes, you may. Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. I have a couple things to say. Number one, the politicians on the Broward School Board, Lori Olideff, Debbie Hickson, these were not politicians. These are moms who decided to run. That's what most people are, including in Palm Beach County. I know every one of those people really, really well. I've worked with them.
They've become politicians. I'm sorry to say that. They've become politicians, but go ahead.
It's not a political post, and it's nonpartisan when you run. The Republicans tried to make it partisan,
Correct.
And that did not, let me just finish, please. That did not go over in the legislature. So I'd love to know why he says Palm Beach school board members are corrupt. You can't just throw out words like corrupt without evidence. He said they have, the people that DeSantis put in have experience. From what I understand, none of them have educational experience. Let me just bring in a total red herring that he threw in there about medical exemptions during COVID. So he has a little friend who likes to attack me. When we had COVID,
I don't know if she likes to attack you or not.
Excuse me?
I don't know if she likes to attack you or not. That's just something I read.
I'm sorry for the background noise, but I'm going to insist, Bill, that that your opponent be allowed to finish her statement. And I promise we'll do our best to give you equal time. But please don't interrupt your opponent while she's speaking. Thanks very much.
So we had bills facing us in the midst of COVID related to COVID liability and related to vaccine requirements. When you're in this position, it is extremely important that you understand all sides and that you take it very, very seriously. Well, the decisions that we were making at that time, in the height of COVID, we go up to Tallahassee, we get tested every week. We're wearing masks. You have people coming into your office. We're scared for ourselves. Our jobs are essential. We keep going in while everyone else is staying home. We don't even have any people, in the audience, as Steve knows very well, that, they were shut out of the Senate side that whole year. So we're doing a bill on vaccine requirements, and the federal government had passed their vaccine requirement bill, and Florida was trying to be different and not allow that. However, the federal law supersedes state law. The federal law already carved out medical and religious exemptions. Absolutely. My bill would allow a medical, it wasn't my bill, excuse me, an amendment on the bill. The bill was not allowing the federal government to force vaccine mandates on businesses, in contrast to what the federal government was trying to do at the time. My amendment to try to make the bill better was a carve out for medical offices. I certainly didn't want to go to the dentist and have someone breathing in on me who wasn't required to wear a mask and wasn't necessarily vaccinated. And remember, this is 2 years ago. So that was my amendment. To me, it made a lot of sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. And it maintained the medical and religious exemptions because that was what the federal law was. So there are all these people who are coming after me with medical heroes that I, don't care about them. I'm endorsed by the Palm Beach County Medical Society, the Florida Medical Society, the Florida nurses, all of them for all the bills that I've worked on over the last 4 years. This has nothing to do with medical heroes. This had to do with trying to stop the misinformation about vaccines, about masks, and trying to get rid of this virus once and for all. And to me, it was a good idea. Of course, it wasn't accepted because, the Republican majority. But to turn around a question about school boards and say, I don't care about medical heroes is truly ridiculous.
I want to clarify a couple of things you said, Senator Polsky. First off, when your opponent mentioned, politicians on the board, you came back with 2 people who lost people in the Parkland shooting, but those people were not among those who were removed by the board. And you also said that the people that replaced the people that were removed had no experience in education or as educators or in education. And one of the people that replaced the removed members is a former Broward County School Board member. So, do you really think that's true, that there's no experience here on this among these appointees?
I stand corrected for the one.
Okay, Randy.
I wanted, as Senator Polsky said, sir, you said the Palm Beach County School Board is corrupt. What evidence do you have of that, and how do you define corrupt?
Well, one thing that I've seen that's going on is they're trying to bring a company into data mine children, right? You're trying to get all this data from people.
This is the Activate issue, right, sir?
Yes.
Well,
right.
Several counties are doing it, and they're doing it because of a directive from the state. It's simply their method. But
Yeah,
that may be a policy difference, sir, but it doesn't strike me as corruption.
Well, besides the data mining, which I think is totally illegal. Even though they're directing it, you shouldn't be data mining our children for information. If you look at some of the textbooks and the things that they were trying to get passed, right, into the school board, I don't think any of those things have anything to do with education when you're talking about the children and sexual orientation. And I know my opponent disagrees with me on this, but when kids go to school, I want the school board to be focusing on education. I want kids to come out of school educated enough to handle the world, whether they go to trades, whether they go to college. Bring in CRT, bring in sexual orientation, and all these other things.
So there's no evidence that CRT was ever taught in the Palm Beach County school system?
No, it might not have been, but I think that was what was trying to be brought in.
By who, sir?
Groups. I'm not sure. These are things that I'm hearing that we're trying to get into the school systems. And Governor DeSantis is stopping all that from happening.
Okay. So, but again, you implied that you believe that's corruption?
Well, if it's going to go before the board and have the opportunity to go before the board and be passed, which I think they were trying to pass some of the items on the school board books, the books that were going to go into the school system, that had to be stopped by DeSantis. To me, that's corruption. That should not be there. We should be focusing on education.
I don't think there's any reasonable definition of that as corruption, sir. Corruption is, misfeasance of office, taking bribes and such. But anyway, thank you for your comments. And I do have one for Senator Polsky, actually, back on Broward. Despite your comments, if you look at the record of the Broward County School District after Parkland and the way that the board members in question really covered for the former superintendent, Mr. Runcie, the actions of the PR department, the actions of the former school board attorney, couldn't one make a nonpartisan case for misfeasance, which is grounds for suspension or removal?
I'm not saying everyone acted correctly. You know, as I said, this was an unprecedented moment in time, and a lot of things were done that I'm sure looking back, people would do differently, which is exactly why we have the commission. So we don't commit these same errors in the future. You know, in the case of Runcie, there was, you know, legal procedure that was done and, you know, pulled out. And if that's what it was found to be, you know, if his conduct was found to be illegal and he was taken out of office, then
yeah, but that was perjury. This newspaper won a Pulitzer Prize for exposing the clear attempt to cover up the district's handling of the Parkland shooter, which, for somebody who represents Parkland, that seems like a pretty big deal to me.
I'm not defending Runcie or what happened, but the question was, you know, do I think that the governor made the right move with these other members? And using Runcie as an example, you know, that was an individual situation and he's no longer there. And I'm not complaining about that. But when the governor comes in and takes 4 people out and replaces them with 4 of his own 2 months before an election, you know, my opponent said something about the people have no say in what happens. The people have a lot of say in what happens in school boards because they can vote them in or out. So we have elections coming up. And so, and again, I said there is a process that could have been put in place. You can't just pull people out like he did with Andrew Warren. I think that the pattern is pulling out and putting in his own people. And except for the appointment of Jared Moskowitz, you know, they've all been party line. And again, except for, as you pointed out, one person with an education background, are these the best people who should be running the school board? So Parkland is as complicated as could be. I don't have the best answers for what should have been done after, what should have been done during it, after, but I think it's been politicized by the replacement of these folks against the will of the voters. And, you know, I don't see the same malfeasance as, you know, in the Runcie example, because that was, you know, found by a court for him to, you know, have committed illegal acts, that he shouldn't be there any longer. So, you know, as I said, you know, the original question was, did he overstep? And I think he did.
All right, thank you.
Can I say something on gun violence with Parkland since I live here?
Sure. Yep.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I think besides the school board failing on that, I think it's also a federal issue with the FBI. And I think it's a background check issue as well, because that Nicholas Cruz he was already in trouble, right? He was already caught. He was already talked to by the FBI. His social media platforms were all over the place with what he was going to do or planning to do. And it's bigger than just the school board or anything like that failing that issue. You know, the people, the FBI, the person that sold him the gun, the background checks, that failed. And that whole process needs to be picked up. And we need to step that up, because gun violence is a problem. Now, I know people say the gun doesn't shoot the person. That's true. However, to let a gentleman like that be able to buy the gun with all the background checks we could have done and the way we could have stopped him, there's no excuse for it. So I think the problem is bigger than just Broward County when it comes to the level of a Nicholas Cruz.
I'd love to ask my opponent what he will do if Governor DeSantis wins re-election and he proposes open carry of guns with no background checks, no more concealed weapons permit process, which requires a background check.
I'm not for that. I'm not for that, Ms. Polsky.
Okay. Do you think that I'm sorry, I know I'm not supposed to be asking questions, but do you think you as a Republican could vote against the Republican majority in the Senate? Do you think that's really how it works?
I understand that's not how it works. You're asking how I would feel about that. And I don't believe that's good. Because again, you don't know the mental health, and you don't know the background of the person that's going to be picking up that gun. You don't know the intention. This isn't the old West anymore. We're not walking around with guns on our hips, as far as I'm concerned. So
I would point out that in his questionnaire, Bill Reicherter also wrote that he does not favor what's called constitutional carry, the idea that you not only have open carry, but have open carry with no say in any sort of training or background checks or that sort of thing.
If you win this bill, God bless you. Please vote against that. That's all I can say. Because I don't see any Republicans voting against the party. But good luck to you.
I want to switch gears. We asked both of you your three most important issues facing your legislative district, and Senator Polsky, you put property insurance crisis, gun safety, and affordable housing. And Bill, you said mental health, school safety, and the rising cost of property insurance. So the one thing of the three that you both put on there is the rising cost of property insurance. So I wanted to get a little more into that. And first off, Senator Polsky, do you think that what the legislature passed in special session is going to be effective enough to lower costs for people, and what else needs to be done?
I do not think it's effective enough. I did vote for it because I felt like I had to do something. I couldn't come back to the district after the special session and say, there were so many problems with this bill and it's so ineffectual, but maybe it'll help in a year or so. So I just had to do something to try to help my constituents. That's how I felt, even though there's a lot wrong with the bill. The bill didn't go far enough. We put in a bunch of amendments to try to make it better. Again, as I mentioned before, you can't solve this crisis in a 3-day special session, especially when we try to put forth other ideas, other amendments, and everything is shot down because, first of all, it'll probably be shot down anyway. But if you're in a 3-day session, you don't have time to go back and forth in each chamber to evaluate it and vote on it. The bill stands as it is, and you can't make any changes, which makes it so poorly done. We asked for rate freezes during the time of these changes. We asked the sponsor of the bill, will this help? He's an insurance agent, Senator Boyd, and he said, I can't guarantee that. They tried to make some more fixes to litigation, to roof fraud. One part of the bill that sounds good, that you can't drop someone if their roof is 15 years old or less, but you can, because of that reason, but you can drop them for any reason. So we should have made that stronger. It says you just can't drop them. So it all kind of sounds good, but it just doesn't go far enough. And I'm so disappointed that this administration didn't spend the last 4 years trying to fix this problem. Instead, they got caught up in all the culture wars, and it was just not a focus at all. There's a great article that I just posted on Twitter that goes through all the emails and the focus that the DeSantis' legislative team was focused on. And there were suggestions about property insurance, and they just ignored it. They just kept focusing on everything else, immigrants and elections and things that, just not top of mind and as important. And let's not forget climate change. That could be the #1 reason why insurance companies are leaving this state. I mean, this state is difficult to insure no matter what, even if we did everything we could for climate change. But have we? Has that been a focus over the last 4 years? There's been some, but it has not gone far enough at all. And so here we are in absolute crisis mode. And my Republican friend, Jeff Brandes, has been warning about this for years. And his bills and his amendments were ignored as well. So we have a real problem. And, maybe we'll have a special session after the election. I don't know, but it's just too little too late at this point.
Okay, so that answered the first part of the question, that it was not enough. But moving forward, also, what does the legislature need to do to lower property insurance costs in Florida?
So some of the things that the Democrats have suggested are, as I mentioned, rate freezes, over the next few years. And if we have plenty of money in emergency funds and surplus, if we need to help supplement some of that, we could require insurance companies who insure cars. That's a very popular insurance market for them. If they want to write for cars in the state, then they need some amount to write for homes. Why do we give them the benefit of the so many cars that we have here, and that being a very profitable venture, and them not having to do homeowners insurance? So that is another possibility. All the money that we've spent in immigration reform, moving people around the country, we could have been giving individuals, some help with that. We can help condo buildings who are charging their individual owners so much for their own property insurance. We give out money left and right to corporations, tax breaks. It's the people who need it right now. So there's always enough money to help out those in the crisis that we're in for a temporary amount of time. There's ways to incentivize insurance companies to stay here in the state. And there have been quite a few ideas that the insurance company has shot down that, I think would have helped, having to do with the reinsurance market. They didn't go as far as they could because I believe it was Allstate that owns their own reinsurance company. And so it would have been competition for them to lower those prices. And finally, in the bill that we had last year, sorry, my dogs, we had an insurance, like kind of a litigation reform bill last year, not this past year. And I had put in more about roofer fraud. So people are going around trying to, they go to say, hey, do you need a new roof? And I can get insurance to pay for it. Well, that's fraudulent because then you're acting like a public adjuster. So part of that did make it into the bill, and it was actually shot down in court for the public adjuster's First Amendment rights. So that's fine. But we wanted Jimmy Petronis's office to do more. This is his area. And he and his office shot down, getting more involved in taking care of that fraud. And I'm going to mute while my dogs are whining. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, you heard a couple of ideas there, requiring insurance companies to offer homeowners insurance if they offer auto insurance in the state. Kind of same question for you. What do you think of the changes made in the special session, and what more needs to be done?
Well, I agree with a lot of what Tina was saying on incentivizing, and if they are writing profitable insurance, they should be required to write the insurance for the homeowners. When you go to contract, and I'm a contractor in Florida and in Texas, so I will tell you firsthand that the contractor market has a lot to be desired. You do have these roofing companies going around. You also have water mitigation companies going to people's houses and saying that they can find a leak in your kitchen. Well, they make the leak and then they go ahead and they put a property claim in and they get you money. So if you want to stop the problem, and the bill did not go far enough, as Tina had mentioned. First of all, with contractors, if you want to stop contractors from being illegal, if they're going to commit fraud and it's found that it's fraudulent, their license should be suspended permanently. They should also have to be able to pay back that money that they took from the insurance company, and they should serve a minimum of some sort of prison time or community service. You need to stop the contractor if you want to stop the problem, because if you're not going to go to the basis of the problem, this problem is going to keep continuing, and you're going to flood insurance, citizens' insurance. Their fund isn't going to be big enough to cover all these disasters. We'll be getting federal aid. We'll be going into all the other funds we have, and the circle is going to keep continuing. So my theory is, if you want to stop it, we stop it at the baseline, where the contractor, as soon as they're found to be fraud and it's a fraudulent claim, that's it. They're done. They should not be able to get another license in the state of Florida to practice, just like any other profession. But definitely we need to incentivize these insurance companies to write, because they're not just going to start writing on their own. Florida is a big scam state, probably one of the top in the country, and we have the natural disasters of hurricanes, right? And you take what just happened and you see how devastated the West Coast is. These insurance companies from headquarters are looking at that and they're saying, we don't want to write here. We want to figure out how to get out of here. So if we're going to give them the privilege to be here to ride our cars, like Tina said, they should have to have the other side of the coin. But it's just like anything else. You got to go down to fundamentals. You got to go to basics. The basic problem is we have so much fraud in this state, and they get away with it. And then they keep committing and they keep committing, or they start another company, or we need to end that. If we end those people, which is really easy to do in a professional license, because without a contractor license, you can't pull a permit, right? So they can't do the work. So we start ending that and putting some serious fines on these people. They're not going to want to have to pay these fines to live their life again. And I think that will be a big start in helping insurance companies also knowing that, hey, Florida's not playing around. This is going to start changing for us now.
Thanks. Randy, did you have any questions?
No, actually, with your asking for forgiveness, I need to leave the meeting just a few minutes early, but thank you all. Thank you both for your time. I've enjoyed the discussion on insurance. Be nice to hear it in Tallahassee.
Nice to meet you, Randy.
All right. Well, Steve will probably be back in momentarily, but look, the other issue, especially in southern Palm Beach County, is not just homeowners insurance, but the cost of housing in general. Housing costs have skyrocketed here. You know, anybody that's looking for a house, it's a huge problem. Anybody who owns a house and remembers the prices right before the Great Recession is probably terrified as well. I live in southern Palm Beach County, and I know I am. So what do we do to make housing more affordable? You know, one thing I hear over and over is make sure the Sadowski Trust Fund is fully funded. Is that it? Is that all we can do in Tallahassee to kind of cut into this problem? Bill, what do you think? Yeah, I saw you shaking your head a little bit there.
Yeah, I think the problem is bigger than this, right? Number one, the cost of land is through the roof. That's a problem. You have supply chain problems, which bring the cost of materials to build way sky high, right? You have property taxes high. You have to have, besides Tallahassee, we got to get our supply chain moving again, because if our supply chain is going to stay the way it is, you're never going to be able to build anything affordable because you can't get affordable materials. You have labor shortages, which drives up the cost of labor in construction, which all gets added back to the cost of building the facility. We need cities that have land to help us with that land, with either donating land or giving the land at a good price. We need to get contractors in line that want to build, right? And build and give them some sort of incentive to build the affordable housing. And then we're going to have to make sure that we can keep our pricing down. I mean, you have zoning issues you got to deal with, because now we got to make sure we can not only build the affordable housing there, but we need density, because the more you can build on that land, the cheaper you can build. So there's a lot more issues than just Sadowski funds or that. You have a whole chain of events that go into play on how you're going to get affordable housing. And currently, the way this market is and the affordability of land, I think it's going to be very hard. I think it's a great topic. I think it needs to be addressed. I think it needs to definitely happen. But our cost to do business right now is so high that I think it's going to be a big, big measure for us to be able to bring affordable housing. Unless you go to redevelopment of areas where you have an area that could be redeveloped and you knock down an area that's in bad shape, and then you get tax incentives and you get contractors to go in there, and you want to redevelop that area and rezone it so you can get more density in there and build something more affordable for people to live. That might be a solution. But the way the current market is, and you have to be realistic about it, it's not a cheap market to build anything. So they have to pay back the cost of construction. And to do that, that's how they base their square foot prices when they start renting. So it's a big problem. It's not just about one set of money. It's got many legs to it.
Sure. Senator Polsky, what do you think?
Sure. Well, Bill did a good job of listing all the problems that we have right now, but I didn't hear a single solution. So here are some solutions. Specifically with Sadowski Fund, one of my first bills 4 years ago was to not allow the Sadowski Fund to be swept. Why is that important? And I will get to other things, but we are a donor county in Palm Beach and Broward too. And we don't get our fair share of money back. And so for many years, it was swept. And then 2 years ago, they came up with an idea that we won't sweep it, so they can't be accused of sweeping, but we're only going to allocate 50% to housing. The rest is to environmental projects, which sound great, you know, all for environmental projects, but there's other funds for that. Sadowski was designed as a trust fund entrusted to the people from selling of homes to be able to afford to create more affordable housing. So number one, I would like to repeal the bill that requires 50% of Sadowski to be swept to other projects. So that would give us a lot more money. Palm Beach County has a referendum on the ballot for housing bonds, and it is supposed to create 20,000 units over time with incentives to builders. There are plenty of affordable housing builders. As was mentioned, you know, redeveloping land that's already developed, like, you know, office buildings that aren't used or strip malls that need refurbishing, and creating the kinds of communities that we have, like the Uptown Boca, which is in the district, which is mixed use, you know, retail and housing. And some of those units are deemed as affordable housing. So I think passing the Palm Beach County referendum will go a long way. I am chair of a task force on affordable housing for Palm Beach County that was newly formed, that we will continue to work through this project. I'm working with Mayor James and with Commissioner Bernard on that, and the Housing Coalition and the Economic Council of Palm Beach County, who are the ones who are really trying to help this this housing bond referendum go through. I'm recommending to everyone to vote yes on it. I put it out in a newsletter to my constituents. I created a legislative call with all of us so that we reach everyone, so everyone understands how important this is, and that we vote yes on this bill. So those are the kind of things that we can do to create the opportunities for more housing, more supply. And I think those two issues alone would go a long way to help in this local area.
Okay. Steve, I see you're back on. Did you have any further questions?
No further questions at the moment. None.
Okay. Well, in that case,
can I say something real quick on that?
yes, of
Okay.
course.
So Tina, you said I didn't offer solutions, but you preached back 2 solutions that I offered, which was rebuilding areas, right? And incentivizing.
Right, but
So-
you didn't talk about how. I mean, that's how to do
Okay.
that.
Well, you know, I don't know how much time we have here to write a whole book
The
on it.
devil's
You've
in the
been-
details.
The devil's in the details, right? I mean, everybody, we'll hold it for another time.
I can't hear you, Dan.
Yeah, Daniel.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. And we will have an endorsement within a week. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
You well.
Bye.
Bye.